staring intently at the camera. Well, not anybody we care to mention. All right, are we rolling? No thanks to Audio Groombacker. All right, continuing where we were, sort of. If you recall, we were talking about several things. One, if you're intellectually a part of any situation that you're attempting to study, then you cannot, in some new way, properly analyze the situation in what would be truly some impersonal, objective manner. Rephrased, that if your interest in some question, in some problem, is ordinary, and as it must be based upon a kind of self-centered, self-referring interest, then you can never ask just one more question, and thus you will forever remain a part of the very question that you are trying to answer, or the very problem that you hope to solve. No psychological trickery involved, at least not out of the ordinary, but it is on the basis that if you're attempting to jump up and see the soles of your feet, it takes, shall we all admit, more than an ordinary amount of gymnastic ability. And now if you will apply that, seeing that illusion certainly struck home with everyone, that if you take that same idea and apply it here, you get some notion of the fact that if your interest, if you're thinking in an ordinary way, and whatever interest you have, if we called it in a question, or if you had an interest in what would seem to be some problem you had, then there are two aspects that we'd already mentioned, but I wanted to sort of split them up and to reinforce your attention to it, is if you do that, for one, you cannot, as we were talking about that kind of intellectual, private, Socratic intellectual method, you cannot continue to always just ask one more question. And hence, from being unable to do that, you're left with always, in a way that's not noticed, but you're always left with being a part of the question that you're attempting to answer. You remain a part of the question. There's no way out. Or you remain a part, if you want to look at it another way, same thing, but look at it another way if you want to, that you are a part of the problem that you're hoping to solve. I don't think we should stop in these simple matters that might explode people's whole lives and myths if they could hear it, such as I just mentioned. But those of you on your own who'd like to go out and sink your own canoe, there is no way to solve the factual problems of life, as opposed to the actual problems such as sickness and a broken bone. I mean, it's damn hard enough to do that. Oh, I know people can do it, but it's hard enough to pay for it or to find a doctor that's in his office when you do need him and all that. So that's hard enough, as we all know. But insofar as factual problems, psychological problems, that whole genre, in case you have French lick problems, the idea that it's difficult to heal psychological scars or to straighten out spiritual, intellectual sprains, fractures, traumas. To say that's difficult is not to say much. I mean, people go to school 12 years to be able to say that and get a degree and licensed by the state that, yes, I are a psychiatrist. And they will say, in their great wisdom and the way in which many of them speak with authoritative voices, that it is most difficult. We will agree, I am an expert, I am trained, and blah, blah, blah. But I, speaking for my profession, I personally will admit it is most difficult to absolutely cure psychological problems. Now that's, forget psychiatrists, that, may I suggest, is really nice of life, because I'm telling you the truth. It's not difficult, it's impossible. But not for some reason, not because of the shortcomings of our educational system or of men who wear beards and speak in authoritative voices. It's not that. It's at the ordinary level. any problem that you're attempting to solve, any question you're attempting to answer, if you're operating at the ordinary level, it is impossible to escape being part of the inquiry. If it is a self-referring system, the sun cannot jump up. We'll try this since it was so enlightening before. The sun, the center of your little universe, cannot jump up and see the soles of its feet. Huh? Huh? Now, yeah. I thought that would clear it up. The sun cannot say, what's going on here? You understand? The king is surrounded by yes men. He can say, I do not want any yes men around here. And they'll say, right, chief. He'll say, I'm serious, get him out. And he'll say, you got it. It is the nature. Here we go, bring in the Greek, which will work this week since we're talking about Socratic. Bring in the Greek chorus. Here we go. It is the nature of three-dimensional energy being fueled by polarized energy. Three-dimensional reality energized by polarized energy. It is not a problem, but you got two dancers. And there's no way to escape. You're dancing, and if you appear to be leading, you can say, do you like to follow? And your problem. And that problem is just one word. Your partner, your friend, your interest, your curiosity. What's it going to say? It's got two choices. It can say yes or no, but it doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Don't tell me you're going to get off the dance floor. Well, I don't hear about suicide, because that's the only way you're going to get off the dance floor. There is no way, it's not a flaw, but there is no way to escape the ordinary conception of problems and questions. Because at the ordinary level, your inquiry is a part of the question. Your interest in solving the problem is a part of the problem. And I'm using their terms. I'm not saying it's a problem. But I know in the factual world, there seems to be problems. Nowadays, the more civilized you are, the more you have factual problems than you do actual problems. That is, more people have psychological problems than they do hernias, and broken bones. A little more specifically where we left off last time. In this same area, we were noticing how using, probably in a metaphorical sense, but if you recall, we were discussing how it is that the old ordinary crowd of neural Athenians in our scenario would not, nay, did the Greeks say that? Nay, could not tolerate an intellectual Socrates or an extraordinary Socratic intellect that was always asking just one more question. Could not tolerate it because that would produce a failure to ever come to an acceptable conclusion. And even worse would be the possibility that this Socratic intellect was deliberately attempting to do so. That is, escape coming to a conclusion. The neural populace of Athens, of Peoria, San Diego, Nutley, Secaucus, the fine burghers of those burgs cannot tolerate it. Your own mind. Everyone who's dancing backwards. The populace of your own neural chemical fields wherein the lightning continually flashes cannot tolerate that. Consider then, it would be only a revolutionist trapeze artist who could happily hang by his intellectual teeth forever. With no other swing to grab, no catcher, that is, no other person to catch you, should you let go. no safety net, and no way down. But that has to be in the new area. That is why I said the revolutionist trapeze artist, because an ordinary trapeze artist, that is, if you tried at the ordinary level, about the best you come up with, which I'm saying best, would be the Socratic story if it were sequential literal history. That is, that they finally have enough of it and say, you know, ditch him. Take care of him. As Howard Hunt would. I started to say H.L. Hunt, but then every time I do that, all you people want to hold hands and sit on the front porch and sing Just Folks. Work it out later. Howard Hunt. At any rate, the Athenians then want to, I was trying to stumble around to the spire, is they want to engage in executive termination or whatever, executive action with extreme prejudice. That is, at the ordinary level, if you attempted to hang on to the trapeze forever, the intellectual trapeze, or the trapeze with your intellectual teeth forever, they would shoot you down. Somebody'd come up and get you. They'd cut the rope. They'd cut the lights. They'd pull down the tent. They'd take the guy that they fire their cannon and aim it at you. They would finally go, and don't worry about Secaucus or holding your head, is in here. If you kept playing with something like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And you kept doing Socrates to yourself, as I was suggesting last time, and will again tonight, that you should be, strike should, sound like a preacher, that you might, if you saw any possible benefit therein, of playing a true, independent, internal Socratic approach or game with yourself, wherein you always ask just one more question, not to prove anyone wrong, got nothing to do with it. It's just to do it. Or as Socrates pointed tonight, part of it is to remind oneself of the absolute impermanence of the factual world. Because if it were not true, you could not continually ask just one more question. You'd finally get to the point, even if you attempted to do it. If there was some stability, if there was some permanence in a healthy way in the factual world, then if you attempted to do this, the hobby would finally run out. Assuming you live long enough that you finally would keep to yourself asking just one more question, and finally, even if you didn't want to, if you thought, boy, this is great, what a hobby, I've got an intellectual hobby, the rest of my life I keep asking, and no matter what it seems like, I come up with a conclusion. I think, aha, that's true. That's the nature of beauty or of life or morality. And now I ask, all right, wait a minute. Let me take this one step further. And I've been doing that for years. God, what a great hobby. The ordinary intellect cannot tolerate that. Energy would be short-circuited, polarized energy, within a three-dimensional reality, in which condition your ordinary intellect survives. And the whole idea of hanging on by your intellectual teeth forever, happily from a trapeze and never coming to conclusion, is impossible, even if you, as I was trying to convey, if you tried to theoretically take this and think that would be a nice hobby. An ordinary person could not do it, stretching, as you should say, reality to far past a verbal breaking point. But if you could have it both ways, if you have peanut butter and jelly and peanut butter sandwich simultaneously, if people heard this and theoretically thought that would be great, I will play this Socratic non-ending game forever with myself. They couldn't do it, but if they tried and had some success, they'd go nuts. Was the inference that me saying that they'd tear down the tent, they would fire the human cannonball in your direction, or if this actually occurred out in the crude, finite reality, then such stories as Socrates would be a historical truth that they would just say, hey, Jesus, take a break. Go get decapitated. Let us shoot you. Shut up. Well, what they're saying is, come to some conclusion. That is the factual world. There has to be the appearance. There has to be the feel that this can go somewhere, or has gone somewhere. It has acceptably gone somewhere with me because, I'm putting it very crudely, But people, they don't do this, but if we had described it, it's like, oh, all right, I can buy that. I can live with that. That's the nature of it. The other little things I threw in about the trapeze artist I wasn't going to stay on, but they, may I suggest, could offer some further info to say that only a revolutionist trapeze artist could forever happily hang by his intellectual teeth with no other swing available. That is, if you know your trapeze art nomenclature. Whatever happened to Norman? You always make me do that, and I'm tired of it. You can also sing that to the tune of Pharaoh's Jacques if you ever want to do it on your own. About nomenclature. Well, at any rate, several other things I mentioned, there you hang happily, the revolutionist, hanging happily forever by his intellectual teeth with no other swing, which means that there you are hanging, and you're not waiting. The other guy, the pusher over there, there's no other trapeze coming. I mean, so you got nothing to worry about if you learn how to do it. It's not, well, I'll hang on here as long as I can. He said, hang on forever. But, I'll do my best, but I'll hang on till no one comes along. If you're a revolutionist, may I point out, as they say in the circus, they ain't there and coming along. There is no other swing. So you can forget that. I already covered it. I said, hang on happily forever. I mean, you might as well, since you got no choice. Crude way of putting it, but some of you enjoy that. Which from that deduces that some of you are very crude, but we don't have time to go into that kind of uncivilized investigation. And also hanging happily forever by your intellectual teeth, that there is no catcher. So you know what a catcher is. He's opposed to the pusher that swings out another trapeze, but you don't even have that, so we already covered that. The catcher is the guy that you go ahead and decide to let go, and he's the person who catches you. Hence the name. Norman. No, catcher. There is no catcher. And parenthetically, you say there is no other person to catch you. Not pessimism, no attack on humanity, but if you're playing this kind of intellectual trapeze art, if you're trying to perfect it and exercise it in yourself, just trust me for a second. Go with it. You just have to figure there is no catcher. There is no other person that you can go, well, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but shit, here goes, I'll let go. And maybe somebody will get me. No. That only works in the city. That's the only people that go, well, Jesus. I mean, it's been 40 years since I've been to church or temple, but, hell, I may be dying, I just throw myself into it. Too specific? But in the ordinary world, the point is there's always dancing going on. There's a whole vivus nexus machina that if you seem to be faltering in your thoughts and you have some sort of relationship with other people that you can sit around, some people to talk to, or just the city itself, just TV, that it's like somebody will catch you that, well, wait a minute, I don't understand this. And suddenly you turn on TV and William F. Buckley or somebody at that very moment says, well, I think so-and-so, and you go, that's it? Or else he says so-and-so, and you go, well, you dumb son of a bitch, and you think just the opposite. At least you kind of know where you are, you see? It's like there is someone else. And it doesn't have to be just a specific person. It can be a person you know. It could be a figure on TV. It could be a historical figure. It could be that you pick up and you read something supposedly that Charlemagne said in the men's restroom one time to some guy from out of town, and you go, that's it. Either that or you read it and you go, hey, that ain't it. Or it could be that you actually, in a broader sense, that it's like the institution of life itself, that in some way it will catch you. That is, it participates. It's supposed to. Put another way, you remember the Kyroots? More or less, that point out that part of the purpose of other people is to tell you what to do. Everybody. To tell you what to think. It's only the people, real cheap polyester brains or that kind of stuff that either never wrinkles or silk, and always wrinkles, that believes, wait a minute, somebody's always on my case, somebody's always bugging me, humanity's always trying to tell me what to do. Boy, you picked the wrong place to complain. If you're ordinary and they quit telling you what to do, you're about there staggering around like, who am I? Have you got a quarter? Have you got a box I can sleep in? Where's the nearest sewer? You wouldn't be just homeless out there. You'd be homeless in here. You wouldn't know at the ordinary level. You don't know who you are or what to do. But if you're hanging as a revolutionist trapeze artist, happily forever by your teeth, the other one was, that you just assume, just go ahead with me, there is no catcher. There is nobody else. Not to make you feel bad or lonely, but you just got to see, as opposed to, in the ordinary sense, of the thought processes running through their natural patterns, they are tied to everybody else. A fish cannot think without the water. But in this sense, you're attempting to think, pushing the very limits of three-dimensional reality. And there really is nobody to catch you. And the other one, if you are a revolutionist trapeze artist, hanging forever happily by your teeth, intellectual teeth, there's also no net. No safety net. Just forget it. And there is also, thankfully, if you understand, no ladder. In other words, there is no way down. So, those of you that like to pursue this on your own, remember, the revolutionist trapeze artist alone can hang forever happily by his intellectual teeth, and there is no other swing, there is no other trapeze going to come, there is no catcher, there is nobody else to catch you, there is no safety net, and there is no way down. And the roar of the internal circus went, ah, yay! Could I have some peanuts? Sort of aside, to grab a couple from earlier this week or from a few nights back, could any of you tie this to a couple more that we mentioned in the last couple of tapings? Could you tie this to, you remember this one, that there's no way out of a punching bag? And the other one, you recall that if an idea, any idea, if an idea can only be so at the expense of another idea not being so, then there's no end to this. Yeah. That is, let me help you tie it up, or hint, that at the ordinary level, not only are no conclusions possible, but no conclusions are desirable. Well, let's quickly move along before the crowd finds out that the cotton candy that they're selling is actually made out of steel wool. Or some such metaphor like that probably, as that writer accused Kyroots, all this stuff about airplanes and trains only go one way and squirrels, he said that it was such surprising, unexpected pictures, and while these other viewers are writing in, complaining or discussing it, apparently on the basis of them trying to judge the possible metaphorical significance and value. Remember that writer not? He said he didn't think there was any. He thought that Kyroots just did that kind of stuff so people go, huh, and assume there was, right? Oh. Got some Brillo in my eye. But from more recent times, as a matter of fact, tonight there was a Kyroot that said the world of acts runs on needs, the world of facts on wants, and that the latter must be kept wanting. Would anyone care to see this kind of, what would this one be? Subversive theorem number 747. There it is again, some kind of vague reference to an aircraft. No, Kyroot made me. Would anyone care to see? Try and put together this. That you could see that statement, that Kyroots. You haven't lost your place, have you? That the world of acts runs on needs. The world of facts on wants. And that the latter must be kept forever wanting. Could you see that tied to could you see it as being a nice wrap up of a good solid, unexpected view of how man's unique, how man's wondrous factual world actually breathes, operates, and grows. I'm not sure that even you or I could wrap it up any better than that, since we just did it. That the world of acts runs on needs, the world of facts on wants, and that the latter must be continually kept wanting. It is probably too much of a direct theorem to be very satisfying. You remember the guy, the last one tonight, the viewer that again pointed out he thought Kyroots was writing attacks on him on his own ideas in places where they seem vulnerable? See, perhaps that is too plain and direct to be of any real value. And any nice Greek citizens you have lolling about, those who may be choking, of course, could be lollygagging, for all I know. But they could be hanging around and they go, uh-huh. Yes, that is true. That is true. You know, that if there is some significance to what you just said, it's too simple to be of any value. I mean, it's too obvious. The world of acts, assuming I understand what you have been meaning by that, and I'm sure you do, runs on needs. Not a matter of choice. If you're down to the primary world, if you're down to the primary level of the world of acts, you have got to eat. The race has got to copulate and reproduce. You've got to stay alive to do the first two. So it's not a matter, you can say you're not part of the healthy part of life, you understand, but you can say, I am sick of eating. I've had enough of it. I do not want to eat. And I don't want to eat. And if our president points out that he's president and he don't have to eat broccoli, then I don't want to eat, period. It's not a matter of want, because such a person that would do that would be outside the healthy mainstream of life. Just a inconsequential anomaly. The actual world is not run by wants. It's run by needs, what is required to keep the actual world alive. The factual world, the point that gets, as I was speaking for some parts of the capital of Greece, that this can get too plain and somebody go, well, I don't see the point. The factual world, as opposed to that, runs on wants as opposed to needs. Absolutely, in a relative sense, on wants. Because it is easy enough, it's not important, and no one should have to do it. No suggestion that you should pursue it, but you could certainly do away with your needs. I mean your wants, and operate on the basis of needs. It would not be much of an enjoyable life today. You would not feel fulfilled, and blah, blah, blah. But everything that is a part of the factual world, all of man's civilization, all the trappings of culture and art, they are, as opposed to needs, as opposed to that which would absolutely, minimally, keep you individually and you, the race of man, alive, the factual world can be dispensed with, because it is a matter of wants. That you need to eat, but you want to eat over at the new Vietnamese restaurant. You need, speaking for the race of man, you need to engage in doing it. You need to engage in sex, but you can say, I want to have sex with a 7-foot tall, long, blonde, blue-eyed Amazon from Oslo. It's two different things. And you can say, you need to get in out of the weather. And you can say, yes, but I want a double-wide mobile home. I want one fully furnished. I want a mansion. I want to live in Beverly Hills. They are two different things. The world of needs must be met. You have got to eat to stay alive. So back to what I was pointing out. The world of acts runs on needs. The world of facts on wants. Needs have got to be met. They just do. You can see that. But when you get into the world of facts, and I'm saying that that world is run on the basis of wants as opposed to needs, do you further see the rest of it, that world must be kept wanting? But this is, as always, because in the next room, here we sit with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and most people, given enough time, dissatisfied, and in the next room is something else, if you can get to it, is jelly and peanut butter sandwiches simultaneously. In the world of facts, in the world that is run by wants instead of needs, what is it that makes life interesting at the ordinary level? What is it that makes modern life what it is? Well, the apparent ability to work hard, live the American way, be a decent Jew or Christian, be nice to your mother, save your money, I don't know what. But that you can meet, not just your needs, because all of you can meet your needs. That's no longer a problem. You can go on welfare. And let us help meet your needs. Remind me to go on welfare. But then, also, the mind, not that it has any vested interest or anything, but the mind says, well, wait a minute. Not only can my needs be met, and easily today, but the whole point of being civilized, the whole point of being intellectually awake, ignited, the whole point of there being a factual world, as you call it, is that my wants can be met. I worked hard when I was young. I started out with a 49 Ford, running on 3 cylinders. I saved my money. I got a job at a place, and I was able to knock off a lot of every day at the cash register, and I bought myself a new car. I went from living in a old used 12-foot wide to I now live in a nice apartment. That you can get your wants met, yes. But notice, and I can't take credit for this, people have been pointing this out a long time. That is, how do they put it? All those old damn soreheads throughout history. They say things like, oh, I know, now I remember, yeah. They say things like, Jesus Christ, nobody can ever be satisfied. That's it, that's what they say. A lot of old men up in their rooms, huddle up there where it's cold, to themselves especially. Sometimes they say it to the kids until they find out the kids go, forget old men and all that stuff, remember. It's you trying to do something new here and all the citizens of Athens where their hormones run down. The old men are always saying about the kids, the old ideas. The old factual world is always saying to the would-be new factual world, Jesus, you're never satisfied. I bought you a car 20 years ago, and here you are now, always hollering, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You know, Jesus, you're never satisfied. And it goes from being that kind of little silly joke with that silly voice. Did I do that? It gets into wide, philosophical, if not theological discussions that something is drastically wrong with the makeup of man, either psychologically or spiritually, that we're never satisfied. I think it's because we are perhaps pursuing false gods, seeking wealth, position, when we should be pursuing, God knows what, but something else, because the richer we get, the fatter we get, the more trinkets and possessions we have, it still doesn't satisfy. Boy, what an insight. Woo! They've been saying that for 3,000 or 4,000 years that you know of in the Western world. But is anything wrong? They say there is. I'm going to have to play the devil's ward. It's not that there's anything wrong, but there's not the matter that there's not anything wrong. The point is the factual world has got to be kept wanting. So to say, well, wait a minute, we should live a more basic life. We should go back to the farm. We should live closer to the land. We should narrow down I know what we should just pare down our wants and just live on the basis of what we actually need and quit polluting the environment and throwing away plastic cans and jars and, by God, live like God intended. I don't care. Go do it. You notice that there are not traffic jams going back to the farm. There are traffic jams of people writing books about everybody should go back to the farm trying to get their book to the publisher. But notice, Thomas Wolfe may be laying in the highway flat as hell, or whoever it was, but that is true. You cannot go back home, but not on some psychological basis. The train does not go backwards. Well, that's the legend. And I don't want to go through the other part about the queen of that particular festival they have where people don't wear clothes and strike strange positions. But the legend says that the train only stops at each station one time and in only one direction. It just does it one time, and the son of a gun does not back up. You're not going back to the farm. Well, if you do it suicidal, then just notice you got no desire to, except factually, this thing will talk to you and to the rest of humanity. The more civilized you are, will say, wait a minute, something is amiss. We should be going back to the farm. And it's what it's saying is what I am describing in a different way. It's saying, wait a minute, I'm living too close to my wants, which are fungible, dispensable, probably polluting. I should be living closer to my needs. You say that, and I don't mean you, this says that. But then if you could ask it just one more question, and you said, wait a minute, why do I keep saying that? And I keep working harder and harder. I take on new jobs, and I keep moving to bigger apartments. I buy more and more electronic junk. I go in debt more and more for a car. And you keep telling me this. You can't do that. If you did that, you'd be playing that kind of Socrates to your own brain, and your brain would say, hey, get off my back. Do you follow? Because it's natural. This thing has got to be kept in a state of wanting. Fade out. As if we had a choice.